Hi everyone, this is Danielle Miller and welcome to the very first of what I hope will be many Empowered Brand shows. This is the debut show today. I'm hoping you can hear me okay and that the sound is good. I had some issues yesterday. I was on Mark Seidel's HOA show and we were having some trouble with my headset. And so I'm hoping that that is all worked out, those bugs are good, and you can hear me just fine today. So if not, please put something in the chat box and let me know that there's no sound coming out or that there's some sort of glitch that way. I should tell you right off the bat that my expertise and my forte is in brand strategy and brand creativity, and I'm not the best at the technical aspects of learning Google Plus and all those type of different things that my right brain does not grasp so well. So I'm learning this as I go. I've read a lot about doing an HOA, and I've watched lots of videos, and I've tried to set everything up the best that I could. So, but I'm sure that there's going to be some glitches along the way, and we'll just work through them, and we'll go from there. So on today's show, I'm going to talk a little bit about my philosophy around branding and what that looks like and why it is so critical in the digital age to have a strong and resonant and aligned brand, one that you can be proud of, one that is the very best version of yourself that you want to put out there. You know, today there's so much debate and controversy over personal branding, and can people and should they be branded? And what I think that we forget is that we are living in an informational age. We are living in a time when there's so much noise and there are so many distractions and so many things competing for our attention that we have to find a way to have our own voice, to fine-tune our frequency in a way that attracts the right people to us, in a way that resonates with them and gives them a reason to get behind you, gives them a cause, gives them a sense of community, and that's really what a brand does. And the interesting thing in this informational age is we're in this very unique time of so many entrepreneurs and solopreneurs out there, and we try to take these very big, broad, big business branding concepts and apply them to the one person, one woman show. That is often, you know, the norm now in the digital age. People are striking out on their own. They're doing their own things. They're trying to create intentional life design, and that's one of the really great things about embracing the concept of branding, because it really is about what you want to do and how you want to show up in the world, and what does that look like. And for each of us, it looks different. And this is why I believe that branding is about imprint. It's about influence, and it's about impact. And if you take the original definition of brand, it means to imprint, to leave an indelible impression. And that's how I approach the philosophy of branding. It's really about creating your own unique brand code, your own unique brand DNA that sets you apart from everybody else. And there are specific things that we can do to create that unique imprint, to create that lasting impression. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is exactly what a brand is and what it is not, and how branding is different from having a brand. So branding is all the things that you do to set your brand up for success. And I use that term success relatively, because everybody's definition looks different. So the idea of having a brand is really about a promise that you are making to your audience, to your clients, to your potential customers, that you will be able to deliver on a consistent basis. It's about a managed set of expectations that people have about you. And there's a saying, I don't know where it came from, so I can't attribute it to a particular person, but there's a saying that you're a brand if you do and you're a brand if you don't. And that has never been more true in today's information society. You will have somebody with an impression or expectation of you, and you can either manage that or those people out there will manage it for you. And it may not be exactly what you want that impression and expectation to be. So it's about really taking the very, very best version of yourself and amplifying it and putting it out there. It really gives people a reason to choose. That's the essence of a strong, aligned, and resonant brand. It gives people a reason to choose you. Otherwise, there's no line in the sand, and they're going to go find somebody else who has a more resonant message. So the word brand, as it relates to being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, even an intrapreneur, which is somebody who works for a company, but they recognize the fact that really they are their own boss. They really are looking to have their values expressed and in alignment with a company. And to do that, you've really got to get clear. You've really got to get some solid clarity about who you are, what you stand for, and how you show up in the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. And then the typical format of the show will be a guest each week, where we'll spend about 30 to 40 minutes discussing some aspect of branding, and recognizing that branding comes from a very holistic standpoint. So it's not, again, just about the components of branding, which may look like your website, it may look like your tagline, it may look like the visual identity, but also the inner work that goes on as well, because a brand, really a resonant brand, comes from the inside out. So we'll be talking with people that are really doing that type of work as well. And we'll also be talking about the practical marketing strategies to help your brand grow and thrive. And we'll talk about when is a good time to rebrand. When is that something that you should be looking at? When does your brand have an evolutionary standpoint that now is the next level for you? Because that's another thing that I think people get really hung up on and stuck about, is they think that they brand once and done. And then that a rebrand simply looks like redesigning your website. It looks like coming up maybe with a new logo or a tagline. And really, those things are the sprinkles of your brand. Those are the things, the visual touch points that people have about you. But that's not the brand itself. And I often get people that will come to me and ask me if I do the work of helping them develop a logo or nailing down a tagline. And the answer is actually no, I don't do that work. But the work that I do with clients often leads to the development of that tagline or that logo, because we've got that inner work down and they have a solid foundation on which to build. And it often happens many times that solopreneurs come in and they think the first thing that they should be doing is developing their website and getting their colors down and worrying about the fonts. And then when they have that work done, but they're not getting the return on that investment that they had thought they would, which would be more clients, more opportunities, more income, it's because the foundational brand work has not been done first. So that's what we're going to take a look at a little bit more in depth today, and just go over a couple of those components, with the understanding too that there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts to a resonant and aligned brand, and they don't necessarily go in a linear fashion. It's many times an interconnected process, and we start at point A, and we might jump down to point C before we have to back up to point B, just because of the way that everybody's process is unique, and everybody has their own brand code, their own way of expressing themselves and their business. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is developing your vision. And another really important piece of branding is realizing that you should always be looking at your brand from a standpoint of where you want to be. And that's really what a vision is all about. It's really encapsulating where you want your brand to go. It's the potential and the possibility that you see for your particular brand, for your work in the world, for the impact that you want to make. And nailing that down is very important, because it really comes down to being the North Star of your brand. It comes down to giving you that guiding point that you can return to again and again and again. And oftentimes, people don't think that far ahead with their brand. They don't necessarily have a vision of where they want to go with it. And that's not something to say that that's set in stone either, because your vision could change as your values change, as you grow and evolve, and as your business grows and evolve, that may change. It's more about, you'll hear people often talking about, consistency, consistency, consistency. I'm more concerned about cohesiveness. And is your brand, is your message, is your platform cohesive to the work that you're doing, to the people that you want to impact? And when I talk about the people that you want to impact with your brand, that's not necessarily about the marketing demographics. It's more about who are the people that you can provide a solution for, that you can have them feel a certain way. Oh, great question. Thank you, Griswold. The guiding point for my brand is empowerment. Everything I do revolves around the theme of empowerment, of helping people own who they are and express that fully and be unapologetic about it, and not come from a standpoint of expectations, or I should be doing this because the business coach I hired told me that I should do this. And I speak from experience. When I first started out in 2007, I bought every program. I hired a plethora of coaches with blueprints and formulas and cookie cutter plans, and they didn't work for me. I had an experience when I first started out of being in a mastermind, and I just the marketing pieces did not fit for me, and I really sort of dug my heels in about doing some of those things, and it didn't go well. And I recognize now it's because I did not have that solid brand foundation in place. I did not have a really big and solid handle on what my 3 highest values were in my brand, and what did I want that to look like, and how would that be representative on a daily basis. And so for me, it's integrity, it is empowerment, and it's autonomy. Those are the 3 values that I try my best to embody in my brand throughout everything that I do. And that's a great jumping off point too, Griswold, because we often see this debate of, do you brand under your name, or do you have a business name? And that's not an easy answer to get to. You know, you can hire a business coach that will tell you, well, you need to name your business, or, you know, from my perspective, I come from the philosophy that everything that you do falls under the umbrella of you, of your name, of you. That's what people remember. They remember the person. They don't necessarily remember the business or the company. That's my philosophy. Is that right for everybody? Not necessarily. And that's why, you know, it's great to draw those lines in the sand, because that would not be my ideal client. Somebody who wants to have that barrier of a business entity between themselves and their clients, and that's not my philosophy. So that type of client would not be a good fit for me. But it took me a long time to get to that point, to really know that it was okay to draw that line in the sand, and that, you know, hey, I know branding helps everybody, but not everybody is my client. Not everybody is a good fit for me. And so again, that's where I talked about this whole idea of branding being this evolutionary process that we go through, and we continually refine what we stand for, and who we are, and you know, you'll see people that'll say, well, I'm not a brand, I'm not a product. Well, I think you are. You're a product of your beliefs. You're a product of your opinions. You're a product of your experiences. You're a product of your values. You know, all of those things go into, you know, making you who you are. So why not take all those best pieces of yourself and put them into a brand, put them into the best version of yourself that you can be. So that's one of the first things that I do when I work with clients, is we look at, you know, really what, as you said, Griswold, what's the guiding point? What is the essence of your brand? You know, and this is a place where we drill down and we get really, really concise about what that essence is. You can call it your essence. You can call it your brand DNA. You can call it your superpowers. That's another term that we hear a lot about. But it's really it's the idea that of what you do that puts you in flow, that really lights you up, that makes you feel like there isn't anything that you can't do or conquer. You know, that's really what is the essence of your brand. It helps you feel flow. It helps you feel creative. It helps you feel like the very, very best version of who you are. Can I give it? Sure. I can give you lots of examples actually. So let's look at, and I always hate to, everybody uses Apple and Steve Jobs as an example. Martha Stewart is a brand that I think is very recognizable to people. They know who she is. It's a good thing. It's her tagline. But she also has businesses. She has entities. She has Omni Media. But you don't know that. You know her as Martha Stewart. You know her as the quintessential queen of all good things, of good living, of excellence. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's another piece of the work that I do with clients, is around archetypes and identifying your strongest archetypes and bringing them into the mix so they can help you really tap into your highest self. And Martha Stewart is without a doubt the ruler archetype. She is queen of her kingdom, and everything falls under the umbrella of her name. Rachel Ray would be another example of that. I mean, she's gone from 30-minute cooking shows to pots and pans and dog food and, you know, cookbooks and all different kinds of offshoots of her brand, but it still represents who she is, which is, you know, all about easy, convenient, lighthearted, not taking anything too seriously. And she's a great example of really living into your brand and being okay with making mistakes and recovering from them without having it result as a negative for who she is. And let's see, Richard Branson would be another example of that. You know, from anything that you've read about him, he is an adventurer. He's an explorer. Rachel Ray is from your hometown, Shannon. Yeah, I think I remember you telling me that before. But, you know, he's Richard Branson at Virgin America. You know, he's got all these different companies, but who do you remember? You remember him. He's a bigger-than-life personality. He's out there. He is an explorer archetype, and he really lives into that archetype of being an adventurer, of discovering unique paths, of encouraging initiative, and forging your own way. Get a drink here. So those are just a couple of examples. If you're looking for more online examples of personalities that really live into who they are, I would say Pam Slim, who I know personally, so I can definitely speak to who she is. A teacher, she is a creator, very accessible, and her values in one platform to the next, you know, you can really see who she is and how she shows up. My girl in the chat there, Shannon Cherry, who's going to be my guest next week, and I'll tell you about her in a little bit. Shannon's another one who, you know, she very much is a person who lives into her brand. She is an advocate. She is outspoken. She is very honest in everything that she does and operates with a great deal of integrity. And I've known her for several years, and I can tell you that that is her inside and out. And it's been in the last couple years that she's really let people in to see a little bit more of who she is. And the softer side of Shannon Cherry, which there is one. But you know, that's a really interesting topic around being an entrepreneur and the whole consistency issue in branding, because, you know, let's face it, we're multifaceted people. We don't operate from one particular facet all the time. You know, sometimes we feel funny, and other times we're serious, and other times we're, you know, contemplative, and we like to show those different sides of ourselves because it is who we are. So when you can showcase your personality and let people in, I mean, that's another part of having this really resonant and aligned brand, is there's a level of vulnerability involved in that, because you are letting people into your world. You're letting them see who you are. And the ripple effect of that is that then you then allow them and give them permission to do that as well. And it becomes this really beautiful ripple effect that we create when we own who we are, when we live into the brand of who we are. So I think that's a really key component of that. So I just went off on this big long tangent there, Griswold, about about personal brands and giving examples of those that you may know. There are tons more out there, and I think that's probably another component of the show, is that I'm going to look at, you know, a particular personal brand who is really, I feel, knocking it out of the park in terms of having all those components, and having a mission, and having a vision, in having a voice that they own, in their vibe, in their personality, in the archetypes that we can kind of see showing out from who they are, and how they incorporate their brand touch points along every step of the way for their right people, so that when you go from one touch point to the next, there's cohesiveness involved there. You're not going to be left out hanging going, okay, that's totally weird, I'm not sure where that came from. So, those things are really important as well. And the format of the show is going to be a guest each Tuesday of the month, and then the last Tuesday of the month will be a recap of those guests. So we'll talk about some of the strategies that were shared over the course of the month, some of the tips that the guests gave, and we'll do a roundup. And I'll also use that time to answer any additional questions that maybe people had about a particular guest's viewpoints or what they were talking about on a show, and we'll use that time as a wrap-up, and I'll take questions around people's branding challenges as well. So that's going to be the format of the show going forward, and we'll see how that evolves over time as well. So we have 5 minutes left here, so if anybody has any questions about branding, about personal branding, about incorporating you into your business and your brand, and I think, again, there's really no way to emphasize how important that is. I mean, everything starts with an idea. It starts with a vision that you have of how you can help a particular set of people, a particular group of people, and how you can rally them around a cause, bring them to community, give them the tips, the skills, the strategies that they need to move forward with the work that that they are capable of doing. So that's I think such a big and important piece of that branding puzzle is really owning that mission that you have, and the vision of what the world would look like when your solutions have been implemented. And I think that's a place where we fall down a lot of times because we're sort of afraid to embrace that. A lot of the branding work is a lot of mindset and inner work as well. It's a lot of becoming confident in your abilities and taking the things that you take for granted that you do so easily and so skillfully that you think it's easy for everybody, and recognizing that there's a real value to that and there's a real need for those particular natural gifts that you have, those superpowers that come to you so easily. So we are going to wrap it up for this first edition of the Empower Brand Show. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to, again, like I said, these shows are going to be 30 to 40 minutes. I know an hour sometimes can be a very long time, and that's not to say that if I get into some really lively discussion that the shows won't go a little longer sometimes, but I'm going to try to keep it to 30 to 40 minutes, and I want to make sure each time that viewers have 3 big takeaways from each show that they can use and implement immediately. So next week's show, my very first guest is going to be Shannon Terry. She is a business coach. She is chock full of savvy ideas and sassy opinions, which will make for a very, very lively discussion, no doubt. And we're going to talk about brand awareness. We're going to talk about the places where you can hear. Oh, she's here. There she is. Kristen's here. We're going to talk about places where you should be seen more. Places. We're going to talk about niches and the importance of a niche and what exactly is that, and we're going to break it down, I think, probably from what the traditional concept is, and we're gonna move past the demographics and talk about how you can really hone in on what your right people need and want from you, and the difference between that, because there's a big difference between needs and wants. And we're gonna talk about that. So it's going to be a really great conversation. Shannon has a wealth of experience in marketing and in public relations and small business coaching. And so I think you'll get a lot of value. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Over that conversation next week. And it will be at this time at 2 o'clock next Tuesday, August 12th. I think it is. I have my calendar in front of me here, so I can't quite see, but I think it's August 12th. And then the following week, I will be having John Lesher on, who is a social media consultant, and it was totally awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today on this first show. I so appreciate your support and hanging out with me, and I hope you got some good value out of today and some things to think about in terms of your branding efforts and where you want to go with your brand out in the world. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing y'all next week. So thanks, take care, and if you want to come into the green room and hang out with me, hey, that's all good too. Thanks, bye.